So we're holding here in Chelik Aleph Perek Gimel Ois Beis Daf Chav Zayin. We just finished up talking about the concept of Malchus Koilel. Koilel, we said, meant that you take all the pieces and putting them together creates a new entity. You may not have added anything, but the structure that it creates gives it a whole new entity, like we said, by a table, and how it works in gematria, and how that's exactly what Malchus does. Malchus puts together everybody else so that you become one unified thing, unified people, and that's what we described. That was as well. That was the Jewish nation. We called it Jew, Yehudi, because you are part of Hashem's nation. That's it. Together we are called Yehudi, even if you're not from Shevet Yehuda. We're called Jews because we're Shem Hashem and we're representing Shem Hashem because Hashem would put us all together. Now we're going to move on to the second part of this parak, which talks about how this relates to Shabbos. So we're here in Ois Beis. Nimsa shal yidei amalchus dahainu al yidei knisas Hashem Yisbarach b'yichudo b'poyel el tochenu. Comes out that Hashem coming into Klal Yisrael, Hashem coming and joining the Shechina, being Shruya in Klal Yisrael, bo ponim chadoshus lemitzias ha'umah. It creates a new face to this nation. We are a ponim chadoshus. We are a new nation. That's what we are. Just like putting the pieces together, you make a table. Before it was just pieces of wood or pieces of metal. Now we are something new. Not just that. Because you might say that Klal Yisrael was a nation even without Hashem. After all, they were a nation when they left Mitzrayim. They didn't get the Torah until a few months later. Actually, this is a very interesting idea. It's a very interesting idea that's brought out in Lomdish Svarim about what exactly was Kabbalas HaTorah. Did Kabbalas HaTorah change the whole nation, or did it not change the whole nation? In other words, usually we say Gershin is Gayer, Kekatan Shenoladam. When a person becomes a Ger, when you have a Goy and he becomes a Jew, it's Kekatan Shenoladam. It means that he left their previous nation and now they're joining the Jewish nation. And it has halachic nafkaminas that person is no longer related to the people that he was related to before. His father is not his father, his mother is not his mother. And it has halachic nafkaminas of their megayer as well. That there's no isur daraisa of arayis in those cases because you're not halachically married on a daraisa level. They're abundant maybe, but on the daraisa not. That's because you changed your nation. Did Klal Yisrael change their nation? No. When Klal Yisrael accepted the Torah, Klal Yisrael remained Klal Yisrael. And there are rayas to this. What are the rayas? One of the rayas is it says in Parshas Ba'al Oischa that Klal Yisrael was crying because they couldn't marry close relatives. That's how the Gemara in Shabbos learns. Rashi brings in Parshas Ba'al Oischa that they're crying because they couldn't marry close blood relatives. Now, if you're going to say that by Maimon Har Sinai, they were all Gerim, and they were Gershin is Gayer, Kakat, Shenola, Dami. So then they're not related to each other. So if they're not related to each other, then why can't they marry close relatives? So here they bring a proof that they weren't Gershin, they weren't Kakat and Shenola, Dami. They weren't reborn again with no relation to their previous family. They still are related to their family. So the entire Jewish nation together became Gerim. They accepted the Torah. They now have a Kabbalah's all Malchus Shemayim, all mitzvahs, just like any Ger would have. In fact, we learn the halachos of Gerus from Kabbalah's Torah. What they did by Kabbalah's Torah is what a Ger has to do also now. So, Lemaise, maybe you would say the same thing over here, that we became a new nation. But according to this, it's not true. We didn't become a new nation. We already were a nation. It's true we already were a nation, but now we're Hashem's nation. And that's what makes it different. with regards to changing nations, you are no longer a Chinese, a Japanese, a Korean, an American, a French, an English, you're a Jew. So the Jewish nation was always the B'nai Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. You were always the children of B'nai Yisrael. But now we became God's nation. And by becoming God's nation, Bo Ponim Chadoshos. We have a new, we're new. We're renewed. L'metzius ha'oma, a new face comes to the nation. Shemishtatef b'soyichem Hashem yisparach, because Hashem is now in the nation. We're different people. We call echad ve'echad hu metzius chadosh shechal alav chalos shem Yehudi. Now each person has a new status. They're called a Jew. You're a Yehudi. B'yosach chelek mehakadusha, because you're part of Hashem's nation. It's true with regards to being related to each other, we are still related to each other. But now we are a Jewish nation, we are different. We are Panim Chadoshos. And Rav Pinkus goes on to say that these Panim Chadoshos specifically come on Shabbos. We have Panim Chadoshos on Shabbos. L'halacha, we paskin that way. That we know that by Sheva Brachos, in order to say Sheva Brachos, you need to have Panim Chadoshos. You have to have somebody there at the Suda that wasn't present at any of the previous Sudas or wasn't present at the wedding. You need Panim Chadashos, something new, somebody new. But on Shabbos, you don't need Panim Chadashos. Why? Because Shabbos itself is Panim Chadashos. Everybody has Panim Chadashos on Shabbos. It's an amazing thing. I'll quote from what he says. Sha'al Yidei Sha'akol Shoyves B'Shabbos, through the fact that everything stops on Shabbos. And when everything stops, we can bring a Kadosh Baruch Hu in, and we can experience that the Chosin is coming in. Everything becomes elevated. The entire nation changes. We get a new name when the king comes in. We are brand new. Now it's amazing, this is an amazing thing, but some of us might ask, come on, do we really feel that way? Do we really, is that really what's happening? Do we really know? This is a hard question. We obviously believe in the words of Chazal. We know that their words are true, but I'm not experiencing it. So why? How do you explain that? So there are a lot of explanations for it. The first explanation is that there's certainly a ruchnius that's going on in everything that we're doing that we don't necessarily feel. We don't understand that the things that we do taka make a roshan. Sometimes a person has a dishmaka seder and he comes out feeling great, but sometimes not. Sometimes a person, does a big mitzvah and he feels really good, but when he did those little mitzvahs, he doesn't necessarily feel it. It says even about Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai for the second time, there were rays coming out of his face. He didn't even know. He had no idea. It's the people, that were so nivhal, they were so awed by it, that's what, that's what told him, hey, there's something different going on over here. And even Klal Yisrael themselves, when they experienced Ma'amad Har Sinai, it's almost like they were living regularly afterwards. It wasn't like, wow. That's what Chazal tell us, that what the rays on Moshe Rabbeinu's face, that's what affects you. But seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself doesn't. So that's what Chazal says, that's what the koyach of chet is. The koyach of chet is that before chet, even in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can still live a normal life. But if once a person does chet and he's tainted, so then even the rays of Moshe Rabbeinu already are too much for them. And that somebody still was on a tremendously high level. A lot of times, though, we don't even realize we are on that level. But it just becomes somewhat regular. We really are. Shabbos is different. Shabbos is special. And when we experience Shabbos, so not all the time we feel that specialness. It could very well be we are experiencing it, but it's become regular, so that's just what regular feels like. That's one possibility. Also, throughout the Sefer, here and there, he throws in things that explain why a person doesn't really feel Shabbos. We'll point them out as we go along. Why a person doesn't feel the differences when it comes to Shabbos. I should see everybody experiencing this new elevation on Shabbos. You feel it? Maybe I feel it somewhat. Maybe
I feel it.
What?
You can't sometimes.
Okay, can't. Maybe we feel it. Maybe there's a different ruach. Maybe there's a different. There could be a lot of different reasons. I'm just going to share with you one thing that I did not see in the Sefer, but I saw it in a different Sefer, and they quote from the Zohar. The Zohar brings the pasuk, "Lo tivaru eish b'chol moshvoisechem b'yom haShabbos." You should not light a fire in any of your abodes, any of your places you're living on Shabbos. The Zohar says this pasuk is not talking about actually lighting a fire. It's talking about kas, talking about anger. You should not be angry on Shabbos. And it goes on to explain that a person who gets angry on Shabbos, the Neshama Yisera leaves. He cannot feel the Neshama Yisera because he got angry. Because the Neshama Yisera will not stay there if a person gets angry. And that's what the pasuk means. Don't get angry on Shabbos, because you're going to lose your Neshama Yisera if you do. So how come I don't feel my Neshama Yisera? It could be you don't feel your Neshama Yisera because it left. Could be. The Neshama Yisera is not going to stay around if it's around Kas. That's one possibility. But there are a number of other things. But for the most part, these things do exist. Just because we don't understand, we don't see. Just like Lahavdil, just to bring an example. Right? We know that in the physical world, there are powers that we can't see, but we certainly know that they're there. There are radio waves. There are microwaves. There are magnetic pulls, both pushing and pulling. We can't see them, but we can see the effects of them. So too, there in the Ruchnius world, which is really what's running the whole world, there are things happening, and we may not know. Sometimes it's even a goy will see it on a Jew's face, and the Jew wouldn't know it himself. There are many stories like that, stories from the Holocaust, of Nazis running away when they saw a certain Rabbanim. They just ran away. They were just so, the same Rav or Rebbe, his Talmidim, his Hasidim can be around him and they won't, but the Goy says, yeah.
Dan de mensen de giftgevers. And he said, why would you guys? That's what happened. And I wouldn't try to look into it. I told people leave me. I have to find it.
Yeah. You see, the people look different. And sometimes only a goy can recognize that because it's so different. When we look at each other, so that's what we see all the time. We always see each other. So we always see each other, so I see the same face, right? I see him on Shabbos every week. But we are different. And Shabbos does raise us, and that is the Metzias, even if sometimes we don't recognize it. So that's what we're going to explain. When the Shechita is in Klal Yisrael all the time, like it was in the Midbar, or in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, also, we're different. When we have the ability to become Tohor, really Tohor, now more or less everybody is Tamei Meis. Anybody who's ever been to even one Levi in their life is Tamei Meis, except for maybe Kohanim who don't go. Many times Kohanim are in hospitals or in other places where they also become Tamei. Maybe in a mutadik way from their relatives that pass away and they're allowed to become Tamei, but there's no way to get rid of that Tumah. But at a time, like during the Beis HaMikdash, when people were able to get their take off their tumah, they were on a much higher elevated level. I think it's brought in the name of the Chidah. I think it was the Chidah. That even though he never saw this, he never heard anybody say it, but maybe it was Rav Chaim Vital. I don't know if it was a direct Talmud of the Arizal or afterwards, but it's brought that says Libi Oimerli, that the only way that the Arizal was able to reach the levels that he reached, and the Arizal was, he died at the age of 38. Incredible what the Arizal was able to accomplish, and he died at the age of 38. He says, Libi Omerli, that Eliyahu Navi came and sprinkled him with Mei Para Aduma. And that's how he was able to reach those levels that he reached. That's how he was able to do it. So we have to understand that being Tahor is a completely different Metzias. If we can understand that that's what the level of the Arizal can reach because of that, so during the time of the Beis Hamikdash, any Jew had that opportunity. And they lived on a different level. So it's the same thing over here. Shabbos, like we said before, Shabbos is like the Beis Hamikdash. Shabbos, just like the Shekhinah is in the Beis Hamikdash, so to the Shekhinah in Shabbos. Hashem comes and joins us on Shabbos. We're different on Shabbos. We are different on Shabbos. He goes on to say, "Haponim chakadoshus kai al am shoimrei Shabbos." These panim chadoshus were new. We're renewed on Shabbos because of those who are we're shomer Shabbos. Val yom hashvi atzmo shu panim chadoshus v'shonis mikol hayamim. On Shabbos itself is the panim chadoshus, and different than all the other days of the week. Why? Because that's right. That's what I just said before. We don't need panim chadoshus on Shabbos. It goes even further. Because of Shabbos, all the 6 days of the week have panim chadoshos. All of them. They get their bracha, like we say in Lichadoidi, ki hi makor ha-bracha. Shabbos is the makor ha-bracha of the whole week. The whole week is yoinek. It gets its influences from Shabbos. Shabbos changes the Hester Panim of the week into the Gilui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in all of creation. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes into the world, the Shekhinah comes into the world, you see not only the Shekhinah is here, which we said that's the biggest thing, but we also see that everything that is happening during the week is because of Shabbos too. Everything is elevated, like in the mashal of the Chassan who comes in. It's not just, wow, the Chassan is here, but now everything has a certain change to it. The flowers are more beautiful. The tables are more beautiful. The music sounds better. Why? Because this is now a chassan. It's all the physical things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created over the course of the week change. This is what he says in the last paragraph here on Daf Chav Zayin. About Kasher Magia Yom HaShabbos Kodesh. When Shabbos comes, Melech HaKavod Nichnas Medina. The king is coming in. He's coming into his nation. He's coming to reveal who's the one who created all of this. Now all the days of the week will say, it's Hashem. Everything that was created is going to say, it's Hashem. And they will change completely. Their Metzias changes completely. The weekdays changes. And now all the 6 days are part of the greater picture of the godless and the shleimus of Shemayim Ba'aretz, of bringing cover to Hashem. And now the Maisa Yadav, the Maisim of the days of the week, because there are no Maisim on Shabbos. On Shabbos everything stops. It's the Maisi Yod Magid Rakia, the works of Hashem throughout the week will now praise Hashem. Nimsus Shabbos HaKoilel. Shabbos is what brings everything together. Not only is the Shabbos itself, but all the other pieces of creation that are now united with Shabbos are also all elevated. HaKoilel HaMalchus Shel Sheshes Hayamim. Now the whole world can now praise Hashem. Because now that Hashem is here, it's revealing that all of creation was only because of Hashem. And that's why he goes on to say, we mention every day, Hayom Yom Rishon B'Shabbos, Hayom Yom Sheni B'Shabbos. We're mentioning Shabbos every day because the koichos of all those days come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu is megala himself on Shabbos, that shows that everything about those days also were kavod shemayim. And then he says such a beautiful idea. Mamish, a beautiful idea. V'chein la'am Yisrael. Not just the creation of the world, not just the 6 days of creation, but we are his nation. What's a Jew called? What's a frum Jew called? When you want to say that guy is frum, what do you say? He's a Shomer Shabbos. That's what he says. He's a Shomer Shabbos. V'chein la'am Yisrael, Shabbos notenes la'hem shemam v'agdaram. Shabbos gives the name to Klal Yisrael. Shekashem sheshem Yehudi chal al yedei matan Torah. You're a Jew. Do you know why you're a Jew? Because you accepted the Torah in Har Sinai. That's why you're a Jew. Shirak misha mikabel malchus shamayim nikra b'shem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're God's nation. Do you know why? Because you accepted upon yourself the malchus shamayim. If the person didn't accept himself malchus shamayim, then he's a goy. Now, a little baby who's born into the Jewish nation is already, because his parents already accepted for him. And he also, the Neshamas were all there by Ma'amad Har Sinai. We all accepted it. Even if right now we're alive, and in modern Kabbalah Satire was 3,000 years ago. More than 3,000 years ago. But it doesn't matter, our Neshamas were there. We accepted on it. That's what makes us a Jew. Hu adin shishem Yehudi chal rak al mi shehu shomer Shabbos. Now you know you're accepting Malchus Shamayim, you're a Shomer Shabbos. That's the Hagdara. That's the definition. You're Shomer Shabbos. Shemalchus Shamayim ba la'olam rak derech Shabbos. Because it's through Shabbos, that's where Malchus Shamayim comes. V'gam b'chol sheishes yamim hu nikra Shomer Shabbos. You not only call it Shomer Shabbos on Shabbos, you call it Shomer Shabbos all the time. The guy's Shomer Shabbos. It's a Tuesday. What does it have to do with Shabbos? No. That is your definition. That's your mahus. You want to be part of God's nation? You want to be a Yehudi? You want to reflect Hashem? You have to reflect Hashem by being Shomer Shabbos, because Shomer Shabbos means I'm making a place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come in. I'm reflecting HaKadosh Baruch Hu because I'm bringing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the world. When is that? On Shabbos, when the Shekhinah comes into the world. The Kol Shegem b'Shabbos Atzmo, for sure, on Shabbos itself. Sha'az hu Yehudi. Be'emes u'bepoel. You're a Jew. You're a real Jew on Shabbos, because that's when you're actually reflecting Kodesh Baruch Hu, because he's here. Hashem is here. Sheshoyer alav Shechina. The Shechina is here on Shabbos. V'havi Baruch Hu bepoel. He's here not just bekoyach, but bepoel. The other days of the week do have their koyach, and they can sing Hashem's praise, and we can know that they're elevated through Shabbos. But it's not actually the same thing as Shabbos. Now we can take the Yehudi, the Dalit, the Shem Hashem with the Dalit in it. That now we can be reflecting the Shekhinah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He goes on to say an amazing thing. He goes on to say in Ois Beis that on Shabbos, a Jew gets a shine on his face. His face shines. It's what he brings over here from the Medrash. V'kol echad miYisrael yesh lo me'or panim chadoshos b'yom HaShabbos. K'mo she'amru Chazal al pasuk v'yibarach lim et yom HaShavua v'kedesh so baruch hu be'or panim shel Adam. Hashem blessed Klal Yisrael with a light that's coming out of their faces on Shabbos. Again, how come do we experience this? Are we sensitive enough to experience it? There are definitely stories of where you look at people, they look different on Shabbos. They look different on Shabbos. Maybe if we remember mechazik ourselves in Shabbos, it'll be that way. A person can feel themselves that they feel different on Shabbos, even just a little bit. Feel different on Shabbos. Notice certain things about yourself. I feel different. But he says even more. He says that you mamish have a shine. Boim ponim chadoshos la'am Yisrael u'mahu ha'mo'or ponim ha'elu. What is this light, this new light on the person's face? Ma shayudi botem l'malachtu shamayim v'shor hashchina al kol echad ve'echad. That he's doing nothing. He's bottled from his malacha for Hashem. For Hashem, he's bottled. And that's why the Shekhinah can be shoyer. And that's Gemara in Shabbos says, Kach ayam minhago shel Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai. Erev Shabbos mevin lo ariva malea chamim beroichet panav yada beraglo mitamet v'yoyshe besanidim and mitzuvayim mitzayin v'doimer lamalach Hashem tzedakah. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, the famous Tana Rabbi Yehuda, on Erev Shabbos, he would clean himself and wash himself and get ready for Shabbos, and then he would sit there and shine like a malach. He goes on to say even more than that. The truth is that we can have even a greater shine than malachim. Klal Yisrael on Shabbos we accept the Shechina. That's even greater than the malachim. Ela Moor Ponim Shel Shabbos Kodesh Ume'ein Karnei HaHod Shel Moshe Rabbeinu Alav Hashem. Shekaz Rabbeinu Maimun Avi HaRambam B'Geras HaNechama. The light, the shine that a Jew can have from the Shechina on Shabbos is greater than the light that Moshe Rabbeinu had, as he brings from Rabbeinu Maimun, the father of the Rambam. Hafach Ponav Liot Chazak Mo'od Hashemesh V'Yosef Bahir Mimenu. This is a potential that every person has on Shabbos. Ki ef shashaya or Hashemesh ko arponov. Ki Hashemesh nivra mi or shebar kim yasale. Which one is brighter? Kodesh Baruch Hu or the sun? The sun is just one of those creations. There's a medrash that says that there was a certain Caesar said, if there's the God of the Jews, I want to see him. Yeah, so the Medrash says, there was a Chacham there that said, okay, Seder, first, before you see him, you need to look straight into the sun. So look straight into the sun, that's impossible. Again, looking straight into the sun. Nobody can look straight into the sun. So you can't even look at one of his servants. How are you going to be able to see him? Even one of the servants you can't see. How in the world are you going to see him? The shine of HaKadosh Baruch was much greater than the shine of the sun. So if we're reflecting the shine of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then it's even greater than the sun. Shahaya Kovod Shemayim Shura Alav V'hu Adin B'Shabbos Kodesh Nikra Shem Hashem Akol Echad Mi-Yisrael Uponim Mazhirim Bekarnei Hoy Shal Kedushas Shabbos Hashros Hashchina. The truth is we have a hard time understanding what this is, right? Do we really see each other shining on Shabbos? In potential, certainly we have the ability to do it. Even if we don't see it, first of all, it could be that it's there. We just are not sensitive to really see it. We're not sensitive to see it. They say, Chazal tell us that when Adam Rishon was choite, so before he was choite, his own skin shined because you could see his neshama through his body. So he was shining. But afterwards it was covered up. You can't see the Shechina with the neshama that a person has. That neshama is shining. It comes straight from Hashem. We have it in us. We can't experience it all the time. There's Hester Ponim. We can't see it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not there. And the more sensitive we become to Shabbos, the more we get into Shabbos, we can start to see the Taka look different on Shabbos. Things are different on Shabbos. The Metzias is different on Shabbos. It's completely different. We might not be able to see it physically, but just like we saw at the beginning on Simchas Torah 2.5 months ago, that the Moshavim that were Shomer Shabbos were saved. They stopped. The Mechablim, the terrorists couldn't get in to the places that were 100%, or not even, there were 2 that were 100% Shomer Shabbos and they couldn't get in. And there was one Moshav, I read about, that there was Chatzi. There was a Machloikis in the Moshav. And they had a Machloikis whether they could close the Shar. We closed the gate on Shabbos. Between the Shomer Shabbos and the people who weren't Shomer Shabbos. And there was a big fight about it. In the end, Shomer Shabbos won. And they closed the gate on Shabbos. And it saved them. The terrorists did not come in. Well, where is that? How did that happen? We may not be able to see the shine, but we can experience some of the nafkaminas that come out of it, some of the things that come out of Shabbos. How Shabbos saves people. There's so many stories how Shabbos has saved so many different people. Just listen, you'll hear there's so many stories. So we might not be able to experience with our own physical eyes seeing that shine, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's something special, something unique, and it changes the person. And it shows that we really are reflecting Hashem. But again, it comes from being a Shomer Shabbos. We're going to finish up over here, the last piece, Ois Gimel, and after that there's a small piece which is not about Shabbos per se, but we'll do it next week, about Malchus Beis David and Malchus Yosef. We'll try to do that next week. But the last piece, the last paragraph over here, he brings that we say on Friday nights, we say Shalom, we sing Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharis. We welcome the Malachei Hasharis. Boachem l'Shalom, come in Malachei Hasharis. Bachuni l'Shalom, please Malachei Hasharis, bless me. And then Teischem l'Shalom, bye-bye Malachim. No, there are those who ask the question, why are we throwing the Malachim out? Let the Malachim stay. Why do we have to tell them to leave? Why do they let them stay? Let them stay for Shabbos. Why do the Malachim have to leave? So he brings one answer in the beginning. He brings Ulai yesh loimer oid shebe'emes hamalachim ein mekoymim besudas Shabbos. The Malachim have to leave because it's not their place to be at the Sudas Shabbos. Al derech ma dichtiv ba'avodas pnim kol echad lo yeh ba'oyel moed b'bo l'chaper ha'kodesh. This is not their place. This is not your place. When the Kohen Gadol goes into the Kodesh Kodashim, nobody else goes in with him. When we are sitting at the Shabbos table, this is not your place, Malachim. You're not supposed to be here. And he says here a beautiful thing at the end. He says, Ayin bo arachaim HaKodesh Parshas Kisisa ala posuk beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oisi le'olam. Perish. It's a Shabbos is a kesher, is the ois, bris, that we are connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the sign that we are connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Perish ein zar v'yisanu ba'olam halaz. There is no other intruder, somebody who doesn't belong over here. V'ulai shegam hamalachim lo yeshvu b'sivotenu. The malachim can't be here. Ba'olam zeh ki hu lemala me'olam hamalachim. Because this is above the level of the malachim. Like it says, the Nebuah of Bilam, that we'll get to the point, that the Malachim will ask Klal Yisrael, what's Hashem doing? Where is Hashem? Because the special relationship that there is between Klal Yisrael and their king, Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Shabbos, for that, even the Malachim, they're not allowed. They cannot be here. So we can say, you came, you escorted us home, you gave us a bracha, but now it's time to leave. Because this is something special, just between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have a special Beini Uvein B'nei Yisrael Oisi Le'olam, just between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. Malachim are not invited. Sorry, you're not invited, because this is only special for us. And again, that represents how we reflect HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light that comes in through Shabbos. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Go ahead.